Leaky faucet fixed for $1. The secret Depression-era way, you hear it after midnight, that slow drip in the kitchen sink or the bathroom down the hall. One drop, then a wait, then another. People shut the door on it and they still hear it. They twist the handle harder, the way everybody does, and for a minute it stops, and they think they won. By morning it is dripping again, worse than before, so they do the sensible thing. They call a plumber, $150 just to come and look, maybe $200. The repair runs $200 to $300, and the man might decide the whole faucet needs replacing, and a new faucet is another $200 on top. A second plumber tells the same story. Both of them stand in the kitchen for 4 minutes and pronounce that the thing needs a professional. What neither of them mentions is that a man's grandfather would have fixed that faucet in 5 minutes, standing right there at the same sink for about $1. No new faucet, no service call, no appointment 3 Tuesdays out. He kept the part in a drawer with the fuses and the furnace filters. Every man on the block kept the same part in the same drawer, and the faucet he fixed stayed fixed for years. This is the story of that dollar, where it went, why it vanished from common knowledge, and how a thing every household once understood got quietly turned into a service call. It is a small story on its face. A drip, a washer, a few coins of rubber. But inside it sits a much larger one, about what a country knows and what it forgets, and about who profits when ordinary people stop trusting their own 2 hands. A dripping faucet is one of the most common complaints a plumber hears in millions of American homes every single year, and nearly every one of them traces back to a part that costs less than a stick of gum. What the fix actually is. The part is a faucet washer, a little rubber disc about the size of a shirt button, a whole assortment pack of them, every size a house will ever need, sells for about $1 at any hardware store in the country. $1 for a bag a family would be pulling from for 10 years. The reason it works is simple. Inside the handle of an old 2-handle faucet, there is a small rubber washer that gets squeezed tight every time the water is shut off. Over the years, the rubber hardens and wears thin, and it stops sealing, so the water finds its way past. That is the drip. Not a broken faucet, a worn-out dollar part doing exactly what worn-out rubber does. Now, an honest word, the way this channel always gives one. This is the story of the compression faucet, the older kind, with 2 separate handles, one for hot and one for cold, the kind a person has to keep turning to shut all the way off. That kind drips at the spout because of this one washer, and $1's worth of rubber is the whole cure. The single-lever faucet, the kind pushed side to side, drips for a slightly different reason, and that part of the story comes later. The cure there is just as cheap. But the washer is the heart of it, and the washer is where the story starts. Honest is more useful than impressive, and the word "any" in a title should never be mistaken for magic. Most dripping 2-handle faucets in this country come down to this one worn part. Not all. Now and again, it is the brass seat behind the washer, or a crack in the body. But 9 times out of 10, on the kind of faucet most homes still have, the dollar washer is the answer. The history. There was a time in this country when a dripping faucet was not a phone call. It was a Saturday chore. It got fixed between the mowing and supper, and nobody thought twice about it. During the Great Depression, a family could not hand 3 days' wages to a man for 4 minutes of work. There was no money for it, so they kept the money in their pocket and they learned the faucet themselves. The hardware store on the corner sold those rubber washers out of little wooden bins, loose by the handful, for pennies. The clerk knew your name and knew your sink. Every father kept a tin of assorted washers on a shelf in the cellar. When the drip started, he reached for the tin, not the telephone. And the boy stood next to him and watched. That is how it moved from one set of hands to the next. Father to son, mother to daughter. Nobody wrote it in a manual. Nobody needed to. It was learned the way changing a tire was learned, or patching a screen door, by standing close while somebody who knew did it, slow enough to follow. The houses of that era were full of this kind of knowing. A family understood its own furnace, its own fuse box, its own squeaking door and sticking window. The home was a thing a person maintained, not a thing a person called about. A drip was read the way a farmer reads weather, as a plain signal of a plain cause. Worn rubber, nothing more. And the cause had a cure that sat in a tin in the cellar, where it had sat for years, waiting for the night it would be needed. The whole thing was almost free. A washer cost less than a postage stamp. A man would buy a tin of 50 assorted sizes, and it would outlive him. He fixed the kitchen sink, the bathroom sink, the tub, the laundry tub, the outdoor spigot, all of them for years, out of one little tin that cost a nickel. There was no waiting for an appointment, no standing in the kitchen while a stranger looked at the sink and shook his head. The drip started in the evening, and by the time the coffee was on the next morning, it was gone, and not a cent had been spent that a man could feel. The faucets themselves were built for it, built to be opened. The handle came off with one screw, the stem threaded out clean. The washer sat right there at the bottom, held by a single brass screw asking to be replaced. The whole machine was designed around the plain fact that a washer wears out, and a person ought to be able to swap it. The working parts were not hidden behind a sealed cartridge. They were left where a hand could reach. Then the country got prosperous, and prosperous people pay other people. The trades professionalized, which was a good thing in many ways and a costly thing in this one. Slowly it became the common understanding that plumbing was plumbing, and plumbing meant a plumber, and a normal person had no business inside their own faucet. The knowledge did not stop being true. The washer did not stop wearing out. People simply stopped being shown. A generation that fixed its own sinks raised a generation that called about them. And the faucet makers, watching all this, began building the sealed kind, the kind that does not easily open, because they had worked out that a faucet you replace is worth more than a faucet you repair. So even the sink forgot how. But the old two-handle faucets, the ones still standing in millions of houses, very likely still remember how the repair was done. Picture the old hand at the sink, because the whole method lives in watching him. There was never any rush to it. No drama, no special talent, nothing a careful person could not follow. He worked the way a man works who has done a thing 100 times and expects to do it 100 more. Sleeves up, tools laid out within reach, a coffee cooling on the counter. The faucet was not an enemy. It was a familiar machine with one tired part, and he approached it the way you approach a horse you have known for years. It always began underneath. Before he ever touched the faucet, he reached down to the two small oval valves on the supply lines, about the size of a silver dollar, and turned them clockwise until the water went dead, usually a couple of full turns. Then he did the thing the careless ones skipped. He flicked the faucet handle and watched for a trickle. If even a thread of water came, the valve was not all the way shut, and he was not about to open a faucet with live water waiting behind it. Water dead first. That was the rule. Then he dropped the drain stopper or pushed a rag down into the drain hole because a small screw lost down an open drain turned 5 minutes of work into a ruined afternoon. The wise ones laid a folded towel flat in the basin too, a couple of inches thick, to catch what the stopper missed and to keep the porcelain from chipping under a dropped wrench. The handle came next. On most faucets, a little cap sits on top, a colored button about the size of a dime, marked hot or cold, popped off with the edge of a flat screwdriver. Beneath it hid a single screw, rarely longer than half an inch. Out came the screw, and the handle lifted straight up and off. If years of mineral crust had it stuck, the old hand never pried on it like a crowbar, because a pried handle cracks. He wiggled it gently side to side, or set a few drops of vinegar around the base, and gave it a minute to eat the crust. Under the handle waited a hex nut, the bonnet or packing nut, about 3/4 of an inch across the flats, sitting on top of the stem. An adjustable wrench, snug around it, turned counterclockwise, slow, a quarter turn at a time. The steady hand held the base of the faucet body with the other hand while he turned, so it was the nut that moved and not the whole faucet, because twisting the body can crack the seal down where it meets the sink. With the nut off, the stem lifted out, a metal shaft 3 or 4 inches long, sometimes threaded out like a screw, sometimes pulled straight up. And there, at the very bottom of it, was the whole problem of the house. A rubber washer held on by one small brass screw. The old hand laid his parts down on the towel in the exact order they came off, in a line, left to right, because reassembly was nothing more than walking that line backward. Nobody who kept his parts in order ever got confused. The washer told its own story, about the size of a shirt button, 1/8 of an inch thick when it was new, and now flat, cracked, grooved, chewed up on one side. He held it up against the assortment pack and found its twin, same diameter, same thickness. The new one seated in, the brass screw run back down snug, but never cranked hard enough to split the fresh rubber. And if the old screw was corroded or stripped, he used a new one from the pack, because a good washer on a bad screw still drips, and a man does not want to be back inside the faucet in a month wondering why. While he was in there, he ran a finger down inside the faucet body to the brass ring the washer presses against, the valve seat, about as wide across as a pencil. If it felt rough or pitted, he knew that roughness would chew a brand new washer to ribbons, and a cheap seat grinding tool would smooth it. A pea-sized smear of plumber's grease on the washer and the threads helped the seal and helped it last. Most of the time, a fresh washer and a clean seat was all it ever needed. Then he walked the line of parts backward, stem in, packing nut snug, a quarter turn past hand tight, not gorilla tight, handle on, screw down, cap pressed back over the top. Down under the sink, the supply valves opened slow, counterclockwise, all the way. He ran the faucet hot and cold, then shut it off, and the wise ones did not call it finished there. They left it a few hours and came back to look, because a repair that holds for 5 minutes is not proof. A repair that is bone dry the next morning is $1, 5 minutes, and the good sense to kill the water first. The remarkable thing, watching it, is how little there was to it. A handle, a nut, a stem, a button of rubber. No license on the wall, no diagnostic fee, No part that could not be named in plain English. The mystery a homeowner feels standing over a dripping faucet today is not in the faucet. The faucet is simple and always was. The mystery was manufactured slowly by a world that found it more profitable for the machine to seem complicated than for it to seem plain. Why the knowledge disappeared? Now consider what that old hand really did. A dollar washer doing the exact work a plumber today wants $300 to do. The plain numbers tell it. A plumber in 2026 charges a service call fee just to pull into the driveway, $80, $100, $150, before a single tool comes out of the truck. The national run for a leaky faucet repair lands somewhere between $150 and $350. And if the man decides the faucet should be replaced, the cost of a new faucet rides on top of the labor, and the whole bill clears $400, $500 easy. The washer in his hand cost a few cents. The bill was never for the part. It was never even for the skill, since the skill takes 5 minutes to grasp. And here the story has to be told straight, because it would be cheap to turn it into a tale of villains. This is not a conspiracy. There is no man twirling a mustache. A grown tradesman cannot drive across town in a truck that costs money to run and fix a faucet for $1 and stay in business. That is fair. His time is worth something and his truck is worth something. No honest tradesman has earned a grudge. The real shape of it is quieter, and it sits on all of us. There is good money in a house full of people who believe they cannot open their own faucet. There is no money at all in teaching them they can, so nobody runs the lesson. The hardware store hangs no sign in the faucet aisle pointing to the dollar bag 2 shelves over. That fixes the very drip a person walked in cursing about. The faucet maker would rather sell a sealed unit that cannot be opened than a washer that can. A system that earns on people not knowing has no reason on earth to teach them. Look at it from the other side of the counter. A faucet a person can fix for $1 gets bought once in 20 years. A faucet sealed so tight it has to be called in and then replaced earns somebody money over and over. The industry built more of the second kind, not because anybody is wicked, because that is the way the money runs downhill. And knowledge that costs the seller money has a way of quietly not getting passed along. The bill was never for a repair. It was for the fact that nobody ever showed a whole generation the washer. There is a deeper cost in it too, harder to put a number on. When a person loses the small repairs, they lose a kind of standing in their own home. The house becomes a set of sealed boxes operated by specialists, each with a fee and a waiting list. A leak that a grandfather met with a tin and a wrench becomes, for his grandson, a source of helplessness, an evening spent reading reviews and bracing for a quote. The drip is the same drip it always was. What changed is the person standing over it, and what that person believes they are allowed to touch. Where else it lived. That same washer reached far beyond the kitchen sink. The outdoor spigot on the side of the house, the hose bib that drips all summer and freezes in winter, is the very same machine. Same stem, same washer, same dollar. The shut-off valves under the sink and behind the toilet, the older ones, run on the same idea. And a worn washer, there was a cheap fix instead of a whole new valve. When the drip was not at the spout, but down around the base of the handle, seeping out while the faucet ran, the cause was usually not the washer at all. It was a worn O-ring, the rubber gland around the stem, and the same assortment packs carried those too, pennies apiece, swapped while the faucet was already open. The single-lever faucet, the one set aside earlier, does not use this washer. It runs on a cartridge or a rubber seat and spring set down in the body. When it drips, that part is worn. The repair is the same shape of thing, a worn piece lifted out and a new one dropped in, and the parts run a few dollars, not a few hundred. Every father in the dry years knew the two-handle kind by heart. The single lever only asks for one new part to be learned. The same lesson even reached the toilet. A tank that hisses and runs all night, drinking water a family pays for, is most often a worn rubber flapper at the bottom of the tank. A couple of dollars snapped on by bare hand, no tools at all. It is the same truth wearing different clothes. A worn dollar of rubber, a job somebody swore needed a plumber, and the quiet fact that it never did. What ties all of them together is a single idea the old households understood by instinct. Rubber is the cheap sacrificial part. It is supposed to wear out. It was put there precisely so the expensive metal around it would not have to. A faucet, a spigot, a valve, a toilet, each was built around a few pennies of rubber meant to be replaced now and then, the way a candle is meant to be replaced, or a light bulb. Somewhere along the way, that simple understanding was lost, and a part designed to be swapped became a reason to replace the whole machine. Why it works. The science under all of it is older than the modern industry, and plain. When the handle turns off, the stem screws down and presses the rubber washer hard against the brass seat. Rubber is soft enough to squeeze into every tiny scratch and imperfection in the metal. It fills them. It makes a watertight seal that metal against metal never could. That squeeze is the whole secret. They call it a compression seal, and it has held back water in everything from a garden hose to a fire hydrant for 150 years. But rubber has only so much life in it. Every turn of the handle crushes the washer a little. Year after year, hot water after cold, it hardens and cracks and wears a groove. A hard, grooved washer can no longer fill the scratches, so the water finds the gap and seeps through. The drip is nothing more than rubber grown too old to squeeze. Fresh rubber, and the seal comes right back. The old hand never said compression seal. He did not know the words and did not need them. He knew the washer wears out and a new one stops the drip. He was right. A faucet fixed for $1 in 5 minutes. A grandfather could have shown it at his own kitchen sink on a Saturday morning, in less time than it takes to read the bill a plumber would have left behind. But somewhere along the way, a country decided that calling a man was easier than knowing a thing, and it has been paying for that decision drip by drip ever since. This was never about saving the dollar. It is about whether a person stays a stranger inside their own house. If this is the kind of old knowing worth keeping alive, subscribe. There is a great deal more where this came from. Do not pay for what you can fix. The drawer full of dollar parts is still there, waiting.